the Beer League Fantasy Podcast. Beer League!
Beer League!
Hey. I'm your host, Tyler Rose, and I'm joined here with my great friends, Tanner Higgins, Cody Butts, Dylan Steineke, and Blake Baldwin. How's it going, guys?
Hello.
Not bad.
What's up?
So we're here. We're just a bunch of friends that get together, talk about fantasy football. We always talk about it on our own, and we decided, you know what, why don't we just put this into a podcast form, just record what we always talk about anyway, and see what happens and see where it goes. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be running through a couple teams that we really like, a couple teams that we think are going to do very well, or a couple teams that are really interesting. Maybe not ones that are actually going to go on maybe win the Super Bowl, but they're very fantasy relevant, and so we want to talk about them because they have a lot of good options to look into. And first up on our list will be Cody with the Dallas Cowboys. Cody, can you diagnose them for a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So this year, I'm going to say that the Dallas Cowboys are pretty much a fantasy football trap. Besides picking up Zeke, Dak this year does not have any targets. Allen Hurns is unproven. You know, Tavon Austin and Terrence Williams. I mean, we don't know much about them. I mean, they've played, but they've never stepped up into a first slot, wide receiver, starting wide receiver.
Do you think with that offensive line, though, they can still, as long as they're giving Dak time, if the receivers can find a rhythm, you could have a breakout year for multiple receivers. Without Dez there, he's a toxic for the locker room. You never know what changes they can make in the organization.
Absolutely, but I think, Dak alone, struggled last year, in my opinion. So he's got to step up, and he's got to make his wide receivers step up with him.
Right.
And an offensive line can only be so good when you have quarterback there. The only person that I would I'd pump the brakes when I'm picking a Dallas Cowboys player unless it's Zeke this year. That's how I feel.
What about Dak as a second quarterback, a second option on your bench? What would you feel?
I would feel pretty comfortable with that. As a second option, absolutely. In a 10-person team, absolutely, yes. Second slot, Dak Prescott.
How you liking Jason Witten as a tight end?
Jason Witten? You're telling me you think that Jason Witten's still playing?
There was a test you passed.
Alright.
I was hoping I wouldn't mind.
He'd be a solid bench player. Yeah, he'd run the bench all year.
Oh, you think I'm stupid.
The one thing that I was going to comment is kind of what Dylan was saying, that, their O-line's always going to be good. If Dak doesn't get his game going with his receivers and they can't pass the ball all year long, defenses may just start to focus on
Load the box.
Fill in the box,
load
yeah.
it. And I still think they'll probably be okay, but Dak really does have to step up this year. So those receivers, big time.
Yeah.
Or else I don't think they're going to win much.
Right.
No, I think when defenses are going to strategize against them, they're going to be like, all right, we're going to make sure that we stop the best player on the team, which is going to be Zeke for Dallas. We're just going to make Dak beat us with their no-name receivers.
I would probably try to make that. I'd be alright with Dak trying to make Dak
Beating
beat
you?
me.
Make that
Right,
Maybe
sell
does,
out
he
to
does.
stop Zeke and then just force him to
I'm
pass.
saying he can't, but
They are NFL quarterbacks, so they can get it done.
yeah.
And he's proven it before that he can get it done.
I like him.
Yeah, his rookie year.
I just think without Zeke, he didn't show that he was the caliber of quarterback to win you football games without having that stud running back in the backfield. So that's the question that I think they got answered.
it is only his second year. So.
Right. Third year, isn't it?
This would be his
third.
third.
Oh, this would be the
Yeah, that breakout first
Oh
year.
yeah, that's correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
because he took over Turner.
Run rookie of the year, didn't he, over Zeke?
How was the Cowboys defense, do we know?
Average. I think they'll be middle of the road. They're not going to be the worst, but I don't think they're going to be the best. I don't know much about them, but
Pretty sure they picked up a pretty good lineman in the draft.
Earl Thomas is still an option, I think. What?
Sorry, I thought you were saying.
like if I had a quarterback and I was thinking about if I was trying to stream a quarterback or something, and I saw that they were going to play Dallas, I wouldn't be scared of that. Put it that way.
No,
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
not sugar not.
So, anything else?
No, that's about it.
Moving on.
Okay. Hold on. Projected record for the Cowboys
Yeah,
this year?
what do
Oh,
you
yeah.
feel?
10-6. That sounds good.
10-6.
I'm thinking.
Would you? Okay,
that's
hang on. Let's do
pretty
this.
solid.
Tanner,
That's
Tanner, would
pretty
you take the
solid.
over or under of 10-6?
Under.
You take the under of that.
Yeah.
I would take the under as well.
I'll take the under. Oh yeah.
Okay, thanks guys. I'm saying more 5.
I agree.
I'm
with about
thinking, yeah,
a solid
8
8 is good.
7, 6 to 8 wins. Yeah.
Give them the benefit of the doubt. You don't know the wide receivers might kick ass this year.
I mean, they wouldn't that year they had Zeke and Dak in full strength. They were 10-6, won the division.
Yeah, they're not missing Zeke for 6 games.
Right? Who knows? I mean, but
That's
still.
true. I don't have to deal with that headache anymore.
We need some sound
I had to
bites.
deal with that headache.
Come to the Brown Beds. Come to the Browns.
We need some sound bites of Stephen A. Smith talking about the Cowboys.
We do.
It's hilarious.
We'll do that
That would be kind of cool.
next time on Weird. All right. So next one up would be Blake, and he's going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons.
Like the Falcons, what an interesting team. Oh, I think they definitely have the most talented offense in my opinion. I don't know. They have a two-headed monster in the backfield with Freeman and Coleman.
Right.
When you don't have Freeman, you got Coleman, and I don't think defenses get a break. Very well could be Coleman's last year in Atlanta because he's probably going to get paid.
Right.
Matt Ryan, a veteran in the league, I think he's probably a B- quarterback, but I think with the talent sometimes B+, A-, depends. They have 3 pretty studly receivers. Julio, freak athlete. I think we can all agree there.
Yeah, he's the guy.
He doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, so it's a little iffy fantasy option sometimes. Obviously, first round, definitely high second if anything. I think they had like 6 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, 3.
3
Yeah, he had a rough
touchdowns.
year.
Could be
Touchdowns
wrong
last
on
year.
that. But you can count on
He
him
had
to get
3 touchdowns last
3 touchdowns.
Rough year.
Yeah.
you
So,
can, yeah.
I'd take the over.
I'm gonna say
Yeah,
over.
Yeah, he's gonna have a makeup year.
Yeah, so that's Julio. They got Mohamed Sanu, who also is a big physical receiver.
Deep threat.
Yes, and like I said, defensive backs got to be ready for him, Julio, and then they got a rookie in Calvin Ridley, who's a speed demon. Obviously very good in college with Alabama.
Another Alabama running back. Wide receiver.
Fits
in the mold.
We'll see on that. They got a tight end in Austin Hooper. I think it's his 3rd year. He's just going up pretty much. I think he'll have actually a breakout year. I would say definitely a tight end 2, depending on the situation where you're drafting at.
I agree. I think Austin Hooper would be a very viable, like, when your tight end is on a bye week, plug him in and play.
Right.
Yep, so back to the most talented team in the league. In 2016, they averaged 34.1 points per game and went to the Super Bowl, and we all know how that ended up. Tom Brady happened. They had an off year, I'd say, a little bit last year. Still made the playoffs. Still, I think went to like almost the semifinal. They faced the Eagles, lost like 15-9 or something. They were down 13 points per game though, so they didn't really, I don't know, click I guess all year. So kind of sucks. Their defense, I would say, on paper, they should be pretty well, but they have them at middle of the road right now just because last year only 8 interceptions. Definitely need to step that up. And Vic Beasley is the man on defense, and he had 5 sacks last year. So yeah, I think if he gets involved, they should be pretty decent. So
You've had Julio a couple fantasy seasons, haven't you?
yeah, I had him last year. Disappointing year. 3 touchdowns, obviously.
I had him
I-
at 16 and I traded him to you.
Yeah, I got him in a trade a couple years ago. Didn't work out as well. I wouldn't shy away from him, folks, but might have to. Yeah, so
He's worth the risk.
I agree. I think having Devontae Freeman or Tevin Coleman is a completely viable option. When you have 2 running backs on the same team that are totally fantasy relevant, I mean, it doesn't happen in every backfield. There's some that are a little bit relevant.
You get them both,
But-
that would be
Yeah.
that could be a really good mix.
Honestly, it's not a bad idea because you're going to have to
No.
take Devontae Freeman high, but you can take Tevin Coleman way later.
Later, yeah, that would be a good 1-2
Kind of
punch.
handcuff it. I mean,
that's true.
Especially if everyone gets a week
One
difference
get-
from
hey,
1 year, 1 week.
Works out.
Yeah.
One gets hurt.
you obviously know who the starting running back's going to be if one or the other goes down.
Don't have to rush the
Right.
waiver wire.
From watching the Falcons and I don't know, just observing, I feel like sometimes they don't run the ball. They don't run the ball enough, and I think they force throws. Once the if the running game's not going good, or if they're trying to catch up, they just throw the ball way too much. When they do have those 2 really good running backs, I mean, if they just hand the ball off, sometimes I feel like they get them back in the flow of the game, and I think that they sometimes get past like too much. So.
Well, it's
Yeah.
almost like the NBA when we talk about bringing all these super teams together, and if there's one ball right, we can't get to everybody. Same thing I think with sometimes with Atlanta, they have so many weapons. Like there's only one ball in the field at one time. How can we get all our weapons involved enough to be proficient on offense?
I
That's
think that was
the
the Falcons'
challenge
problem.
last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You can't feed the ball to everybody. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think the Falcons will have the best receiving corps unless
The
Dez
Browns.
potentially going to the Browns.
I would think the Browns would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
We will
depends.
get there
A lot of
later in the show,
questions there.
but
Yeah, a lot of questions
That's
there.
a really big statement, though.
It is.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I agree with Blake. I think the Falcons do best receiving corps.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
say that.
I
Overall,
agree
with
with
talent
that,
wise,
too.
It's hard to argue that.
every
Calvin really be a beast, I think.
every person in that offense is an option, which is good. All right, what's your wins or record, I should say?
the Falcons will go 12-4 if everything plays out
Ooh.
well. So over under.
I'm gonna go under. I'm thinking more 10.
I,
10 wins.
I agree, under but very slightly.
Very slightly, yeah. Not far off.
Okay, so is that an under?
Over 10-1.
10 over?
Under 12 or over?
10 over. 10 over. You heard it here first, folks.
10
The Falcons are going to get 22 wins this year. It's never been done, but they're going to do it.
Yeah, 22 wins, please. No,
4 under. God damn it. Just say the under or the over. You don't have to
All right,
say
let's get
specifically.
technical. So they're going 500.
yeah.
You're thinking 8 and 8?
Yes.
8-8?
They're not even-
I'll take the over that.
I'll take over
Did
that.
you just say 4 under? Is that what you
He said 8-8 pretty much.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
what I'm
4
trying to
wins
say.
under what Blake said. But
Yeah.
I was like, are we talking about golf?
He's 400 for
They're
the
going to have negative wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do you think?
I think it's probably under. I don't know. They're a really good team, but it's just.
I don't think
I
you're
think the
wrong.
league is just really good this year, and
The NFC stacked.
How's their division? Yeah,
It's-
their division's
it's-
pretty good.
that doesn't mean that
Carolina.
I think they don't make the
It'll be tough.
playoffs.
They will.
Yeah, 3 teams in that division.
I
that can
think
win it.
they might be like, I don't think they might not be the top, one of the top
Wild
2
card.
seeds,
I just
but-
think if they can
maybe a little
score,
better
if
wild
they can
card,
score,
but-
I think teams might have a hard time doing it with them just with talent.
Oh,
It just
yeah.
depends.
I agree.
Oh, I don't. Their
Their
offense is firing on
yeah,
cylinders.
their
They may
offense-
be
yeah,
making
their
a Super
offense
Bowl
is
trip.
going, they're scoring.
No, I don't think their defense is terrible either.
No.
And
Not
I
the
think
best, but not the worst.
Matt Ryan.
I love Matt
think
Ryan.
He's a little. They're underrating him a little bit this year.
He was one of the
I
top
mean,
quarterbacks.
I
taken last
understand
year.
he's fallen a little bit, but wow, they really like, us doing this mock drafts. Like he's down there.
He's way down there.
He might be a steal.
He might almost go undrafted.
He might be a
He
steal.
could.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's pretty easy because he does have.
That's crazy. If he goes
Okay.
undrafted, that's weird because if you think of the last couple of years,
Hey, waiver.
they'd
nice.
say
I'd pick him up for my
Matt
second
Ryan's
quarterback in a
now
heartbeat.
being on waiver.
Shoot, you could start him. I mean, I don't know. I don't think
He's
you'll have a
he's
repeat.
pretty much a starter, I'd say.
When you have Julio Jones to throw to, I mean, how do you not start that quarterback?
He was a freak. All right. So moving on. So Dylan will be next, and he is going to be looking at the Cleveland Browns.
So the
Second one.
Browns, for once, I'm a Browns fan, so this is hard for me to not be biased. But the Browns, it's 1 year. I want to be excited. I'm really trying to calm down a little bit because every year we're like it's going to be a better
You've
year.
been waiting 23 years for this.
Right, this is waiting a while. So, this year really could be I see as the breakthrough season for the program, taking to the next level where we can build upon year after year. I mean, 0-16 last year, we can't get any worse. So we'll see. But, when we're looking at the Browns this year, there's a lot to talk about. Typically, like last year, I mean, we had nobody to talk about on fantasy. I don't even know if many of us had an E.D. Browns player. Maybe Duke Johnson was probably the only one.
Heck, I'm pretty sure.
I think he was the only, probably, maybe Isaiah Corral is a late pickup, weekly kind of guy, but other than that, there was nobody to talk about.
You're right.
So this year, I think we have some people, there's some talent. We talked about the receiving core being very talented, so we'll get into that. Starting at QB, Tyrod Taylor obviously made the moves to the Browns in all season. I'm a Tyrod fan. He is one of the most scrutinized quarterbacks. I think he is consistent. He doesn't blow you away with his talent by any stretch of the imagination, but he really doesn't have some skill set. He doesn't turn over the ball, and I think that's what the Browns need. I don't think they need somebody who's going to go in there and throw 20 interceptions like Deshaun Kaiser. I'm a Notre Dame fan, obviously, but Deshaun didn't work out for the Browns. Turn over the ball too much. We need somebody who's going to be consistent, can make the plays. Downfield ability, not probably his strong suit, not throwing the ball deep, but we can build on that. Then you got the X factor. Baker Mayfield, I was a huge fan of the draft pick. I know a lot of people weren't. You know what? You can say what you want. You can look at all the other people that were drafted and say, they have this talent. Baker Mayfield has the highest ceiling if he can develop than anybody else. I think he's a winner, and I think that's the mentality that the Browns need in the organization. We want somebody, and I agree, Saquon Barkley could be a life-changing player, but we needed a quarterback. I think we got the Pearson for the future. See what happens with him.
Breaking news. Josh Gordon returns to the Browns training camp sidelines and workout area, is in great shape and good spirits.
Okay. That's, good segue into my next topic. So, Josh has to keep his head on straight. We know that he probably, honestly, may be the most talented receiver in the NFL when he's healthy and has his head on straight. Truly.
That 1 year when he was fully healthy.
Oh my gosh. He's a monster. So he's going to be a question mark for me on the Browns. As far as drafting fantasy, he may be a risk. He could come in here and be a total bust. He could, who knows, could get suspended. He's kind of a wild card. So he may be a late steal that you could even pick, or a late risk. You never know which way he may fall. But I think this year might be worth with the people that the Browns brought in. I think they can keep on the right track. I think he may be a good bench player, a good person to throw in later as the season develops. Then you got Jarvis Landry. I'm high on Jarvis Landry this year. I think he's going to be a great draft pick. I think he's going to be the guy. He is the player the Browns need. I think he has the role to take over as the face of the Browns, as the leading player, the go-to guy. He's a playmaker. I watched the Hard Knocks, which I'm sure a lot of people are watching, and the teams around there while he's out practicing, they're like, this guy's our game changer. This guy is going to be what makes us different. And I think you see that with getting rid of Corey Coleman. I think he wasn't great for the locker room. I don't think he worked hard, and I think that's why they shipped him out. So I think that's Jarvis Landry's change there, changing the receiving core, changing the locker room. And then
a quick note on Jarvis.
Yeah.
If you need 7 yards,
right,
he'll get you 7 yards. If you need 10, he'll get you 7.
He is Mr. Consistency. But I think he can do the big play well. And then you got Rashard Higgins. I think he's maybe a sleeper person. I think he could have a breakout year. He was consistent last year. I think he has a lot to prove, but with somebody back there being able to get him the ball, I think he could really show it a lot. I think he's fast. And then you also got Callaway from Florida. If he can keep his head on straight, again, kind of a head case like a Josh Gordon situation, but the dude's got a lot of talent. You saw him in preseason thus far. He's had a couple big plays. So he could also be a late round steal. You never know. And then we get into running backs. You got Carlos Hyde, you got Nick Chubb, you got Duke Johnson. I love Duke Johnson. Being a Browns fan, he was about the only hope we had last year to watch. That was fun to watch. He was the leading receiver for the Browns last year as a running back, which says a lot about the team.
He was the best.
He was the best player on the team. He should have won the MVP and everything. But anyways, he's a great out of the backfield to just catch passes, get you some yards. I think he's a good bench player, a good flex starter from week to week. Maybe a good pickup. Carlos Hyde's a workhorse. I had him last year on fantasy with a terrible team in San Francisco. They didn't even give him the ball. Now, he really did average almost 10 points a game, somewhere in there, give or take. But with him not getting the ball, he did that well. If the Browns feed him the ball, he may have another really good year. So he could be even a good starter to get.
If he stays healthy.
And I think you can. You did a mock draft the other day, got him pretty late. You could get him late, and he could be next week the starter. So yeah, secret for everybody. But
he is the starting running back for an NFL team.
Right.
So.
It's hard not to. And then
are they going to start him?
I think they will.
Who else are they going to start?
Yeah, he'll start.
I don't think they'll start Chubb.
Chubb.
Chubb needs to learn.
Rookie over Hyde.
Start him.
What?
You think they're going to start Chubb?
No.
They're starting Hyde.
Start Hyde.
I think Hyde might be.
I think Nick Chubb also. I am a big Notre Dame fan, so I hate every other fucking college football team. But Nick Chubb, watching in college football, I really liked him until he got hurt. He was the Heisman front runner. Was a great. He was awesome. Bounced back from his injury. Okay, I don't think he was where he was. Used to be at. But if he can develop, and I think he can really kind of be like almost a replacement for Carlos Hyde in sense, and his talent sets. And I think he has breakaway speed as well. So he could be a great building running back for the future. And then really, one of my favorite people this year as to have a breakout season is Njoku from Miami.
Yeah.
He had a solid season last year. Obviously, had nobody to throw to him. But this year, I mean, he's just a physical specimen. He's just fucking huge. And
Hold up. So you weren't high on Deshaun Kaiser?
no, I'm a Notre Dame guy. I know it's. I mean, I'm a Notre Dame guy.
I
I
bet
think-
you were on draft day though.
No, I wasn't, because I think Deshaun Kaiser should have stayed in another year. I think he has the talent. I think he needed to develop more. I think he still needs to develop more. He had a problem with turning over the ball in college. I didn't know why he thought that would translate to no turnovers in the NFL, especially going to the Browns. So, good question for him to answer. But Njoku, I really think he's going to be a top tight end this year. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I really do. If Tyrod can get him the ball, I think Tyrod with tight end mix, I think that's perfect for his skill set. I think it'll be
I'm
good.
gonna have to agree with that.
End of season rankings. Where is David Njoku ranked out of compared to all?
I think
the
he's top
Titans?
10. I think he's top 10.
10.
Hands down. I wouldn't be surprised, let's say like a number 6, 7 top tight end for the end of the year. Wouldn't shock me
I'm
whatsoever.
gonna have to agree.
So, and then defense, the Browns defense is never good. This year they should show improvement. I really do. It wasn't terrible. Truly, that's true. They just were put in bad situations every down. So,
I mean,
you know.
they should be good.
They should be
have some
decent.
talent.
They do have, and Myles Garrett obviously is the person to highlight there. He could be really he could be the next,
so?
yeah, just the next guy, and a couple other players. But so the Browns defense could be a nice pickup for like if you're you have bye weeks and they're playing just the right favorable matchup. They could be a great pickup. So we'll see as the season progresses. That's more of a question mark for me, but. When we look at the Browns, I'm high and hopeful on their talent. I think if Dez comes, like we talked about earlier, they could be the best receiving corps in the NFL. I don't think there's any question there with that lineup. But a lot of questions with, obviously, Callaway and Josh Gordon. There's a lot of question marks there. How does Rashard Higgins develop? It just depends, a lot of variables, but we'll see how that plays out. Browns this year, if I had to choose a record, conservatively, I really think 6 wins is doable. I know a lot of people are putting them like they could be 8-8. They could be pushed for playoffs with. I mean, I don't think the Steelers. I think they're good. I just don't know if they're going to be what they were last year. I think the Baltimore Ravens will be improved, but still, I don't know if they're going to be steady. And then the Bengals, I think they'll be split. So I think there's room for them to maybe steal a wild card spot if they can catch fire. But it's a very big if, obviously.
So 6 and 10.
I think 6 and 10 It would be a winnable. It would be a good season for Hugh Jackson and the Browns this year.
I'm gonna say even. Yeah, I'll take that.
If you had to choose an over/under of it, what would you choose?
I mean,
Hopefully we don't have a tough crowd. But I'm gonna go over.
really? Okay.
But the only thing is, I think if they get a battle, like a scoring battle with like Steelers or a high-powered offense, I don't think they can keep up.
No, their defense is gonna have to make some stops.
Yes.
But I don't think they have an easy schedule. But I think they have some favorable games. If they can win the right games, might put them in some good spots. So we'll see. It's good questions.
Take the over/under 6.
I think I have to take it over just because
Over. Wow, I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I can only give more than 5.
2 games. I had 6, but two games. I mean,
if
we
the
won.
If the number was
7 or 8.
5.5.
He said 6 and 10.
We've won 1 game in 2
So
years.
over 6 wins.
And then we were 3 in 3 games the year before, so we've won 4 games in 4 years or something like that.
I can only go up from here, guys. I can only go
If
up.
we win 6, I'll streak around Cody's house.
Beer bet.
I'm still taking it over. I think
Noted.
If we can go 8-8, if we could, I mean, if we make the playoffs,
I don't know their schedule.
Cleveland may blow up if we win 8-8 and make the playoffs.
Now it is the case is that did you guys see
I
the
think
thing
they're
about
more talented than the Browns.
I think they do too, but it's the Browns. This is my question.
What?
fucking thing? But did you see the thing that when the Browns get their first win, what Budweiser and Bud Light are going to do?
Free Bud Light.
They have these coolers set up all over Cleveland, and once they win, they're going to unlock them and just free for all.
I'll do
free
Are
beer.
you serious?
Swear to God, look it up.
I'll chug a beer I'll chug a beer on set every time the Browns win this season. So
That's all.
there's a beer bet. I will chug a beer every week.
Browns fans.
Let's write that one down.
Yeah, somebody write that down. I will chug a beer every time the Browns win. So
Cody will take the over or under.
I'm taking over.
I will take the over as well.
wow, all overs. Go Browns, let's
Well,
go.
I mean,
it's our year, baby.
You're
Let's
You're
go.
asking for an over or an under. I can't say even. If I could say even, I would say even, but over.
That's
Because
the
I want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I'm glad
It's called
people.
over.
That's the nice thing as being a Browns
Believe
fan.
in
A lot of
this.
people who aren't even
Believe
Browns
in
fans they really want to see the Browns win.
Yes,
Which is nice for me.
absolutely,
So thank you guys for the support.
It's sad.
It's sad.
All right. Moving on to Tanner Higgins with the Houston Texans.
Okay, so I've had a few other players, so I think that's why I know a lot about their team. I mean, I think the defense, they've kind of, I don't know, I feel like they've always had a load of talent on defense, but it's not. I mean, it gets it done for them a lot if they do win games, but I think like to me the defense should be good. I mean, I don't see why they couldn't up their game from what they have. I mean, is JJ Watt's back?
He
He should
back.
be back.
I think he was hurt a little bit. I don't know if he's playing in preseason though, but I think they're just trying to keep him ready for
supposed to
those.
be like the best player in the NFL there.
I mean, I think he is if he's healthy. They put him in on offense. I'd put him in as a tight end any day.
I mean, they have oh my gosh.
What a man. What a man.
Clowney on there.
Just the problem is that he just can't stay healthy. He gets hurt.
Yeah, that last
See,
year
I think
was
injuries.
big.
haunt
That's the
them.
sad thing with Watt. It just sucks to see his back problem.
So
He could really revolutionize the game.
if they could stay healthy on defense, I guess. Yeah, I think they should have a really solid defense. I mean, I just think they should.
Sorry,
And-
Cody. They do have the honey badger, the original honey badger. So. And Tyrann.
Okay. Like added a couple really good players. Their offense, I mean, it should be like a really explosive offense in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of talent on the team, and I mean, I guess the biggest question will be Deshaun,
I
what
love
he brings
Deshaun
to the
Watson
table
though,
this year.
man.
But
Winner.
if DeAndre Hopkins can be the number one fantasy receiver
Might have been the best receiver in
Last
football
year.
last year.
from Tom Savage,
Yeah.
Savage.
like I had him last year, and
Who, Tom?
yeah, and Watson went down because I had Watson on my fantasy team.
Oh, God.
I had Watson on my fantasy team and Deshaun and Hopkins, and once Deshaun went down, I was like,
No, I remember you trying to trade Hopkins, and everybody's like, hell no. We don't want him
Yeah.
since Deshaun's out, and he just, still produced.
he still produced a lot of points.
Might have been,
So-
like I said, best. I think he was probably the best receiver.
He's definitely, I think he's top
I mean,
top five.
you've seen what happened to Will Fuller's performance when Deshaun was there.
He had 6 receptions, 6 touchdowns, I think.
I mean, he went new. Like this
He's
guy
just
just scoring streak touchdowns like crazy.
He's just a deep threat, dude. Just throw him
He's
freaking
fast.
straights all day, every play.
He's so fast.
I mean, maybe he's gonna cool off a little bit, but
Yeah.
I mean, that dude drops some insane numbers on people. Like, I think I looked up, it dropped like 400 yards on the Seahawks D. Like that's crazy. On the
Right.
Chiefs, he scored like 4 or 5 touchdowns on the Kansas City defense.
It's like college numbers. I mean,
Yeah, it's
Like that's crazy.
doesn't happen in the NFL.
So he's probably definitely gonna cool off, but he's the answer for them.
that's what a lot of people were saying. A lot of people were saying that he can't sustain the production that he was doing last year during his streak of like 3 or 4 games. He was just crazy.
No, not at all. But I mean, at least I feel like he gives the other players a better opportunity to be better.
I agree.
Like
He brings
all the
winning culture.
receivers, the running backs. When you can open up the game, like you're struggling one or the other. If you can just open up that side of the game, the other side comes too.
Right.
And I mean, I think Foreman because they have
I think
Lamar Miller.
I think he should get more touches for sure.
Yeah.
Foreman, they have Foreman. You think Foreman will get more touches?
I think if he don't, he should.
He probably should. He probably should. He's just more physical. To me, he's just more physical. He just hit the hole harder. And Lamar, I mean, Lamar has a little bit of age on him, doesn't he?
He does.
He's
just
I feel like
average.
I don't think
you
he's
had a
ever
lot.
he's had a decent year.
We always expect him to have a good performance, and he kind of I don't say he disappoints, but he's on the verge of doing it.
He's too touchdown
It's-
dependent. He doesn't.
The only time I've ever seen Lamar Miller do well is that one year.
Yeah,
I had to be.
yeah.
He had I had to be another player we had in the.
He needed
in the
4
league.
touchdowns.
I
He got
needed
in the
4
first half.
touchdowns. He got in the first half. So I'm forever in debt to Lamar Miller. But yeah, that was awesome.
God
That's stupid.
That's lucky as
damn.
shit.
Dylan
but-
literally ran in. He's like, oh my.
Now with Houston, I think Lamar Miller is going to be opening up the season as obviously the starting running back, but I don't think he's going to have Deontay Foreman's peskiness in the back end of him taking away his touches because I think Deontay Foreman's actually hurt right now. I don't think he's healthy. I don't think he's.
And there's also Alfred Blue, who actually is pretty
Yeah, that's
decent
true.
too.
I
So
saw about him.
Yeah.
he's a good receiver too. You see him back.
They never really. They have Braxton Miller, but I mean he's caught. The thing think he's caught like one touchdown each year, and that's it. And I feel like he puts him on the field a lot, but
It's probably more of a
I don't know, he
overshadowed.
might be like cut not too long from now.
He's just overshadowed by Hopkins. And
Oh yeah, big time. But
Will Fuller, baby.
I'm just saying he's on that. I feel like he's in the lineup a lot.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah. So I think I'll say for an over and under, I'll say 9 wins. I think that's.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Not bad.
I would probably say 8.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think they're a big question mark.
Here, I'll maybe this.
How does the shot
I'll
come
do
back?
8.5.
Dude, just stick with your thing. 9. Fuck.
I know, but it just makes it tough to choose. I feel like.
That's the point.
They will be 8.5 and 7.5 this year, folks. 8.5 and 7.5.
Can't win a half a game. All right, so 9 it is. Cody,
Under.
I will take the under.
I'll take the under too. It's hard. Too many questions.
I'll say under as well.
If I had to bet a lot of money, I'd probably say under as well.
You did lean 8.5 instead of 9.5. So
Well, yeah.
How's their division?
But I don't want to
I
like.
don't know. I forget. Look up.
If their division.
I just think they have a lot of potential, and I mean they made the playoffs last year, didn't they? Or is it
I don't
the year
think
before?
No, they didn't last year.
The last couple of years they did.
if Deshaun Watson was probably still playing, they probably would have.
Who's in there?
Yeah.
Who we got here?
AFC's no.
Jacksonville.
No, Jacksonville. What?
But we will see how that goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
All right. So moving on. So last but not least, this will be my pick, and I have the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that did pretty well. They made the playoffs last year. Overall, their defense is super studly. I think they have one of the best, probably top 3 defenses, to be honest, in the NFL. I mean, and they always say like defense wins championships. I mean, it also helps you win some games too, because you got to get there.
Should've
So-
lost the Saints.
They had, they made some improvements. They went and got some people, especially like Kirk Cousins. So I think Kirk Cousins is a big improvement over Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum was a completely viable quarterback last year. You could have played him in fantasy.
Right.
He would have won you some games. He got the production. He got the points. I don't know where he ended up ranking, but he definitely wasn't in the lower half. I mean, he was totally fantasy viable.
This is Kirk Cousins' year to show if he's
Yeah.
really the real deal or not. I mean, this is it. This is his opportunity.
I agree. And he got paid, straight paid.
Oh God.
Like for what he's done in the past, and he has been a good quarterback in the past. I don't think he's had the weapons that he has
No.
right now, not even close to the team he has. And if he's going to do it, it's going to be this year or next year. Like he's got to do it then.
Right.
But you know what, we're going to find out. But and then from the running back standpoint, so they were actually also missing. They had Dalvin Cook, who was a rookie last year.
Good start
He
to
came
the
back.
season.
He was awesome last year. He was doing really good, and then he went down and got hurt, unfortunately. But I mean, that happens. I mean, it's football. But if he can stay healthy and he can do what he did last year, he's gonna be one of the best.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
he's gonna be really, really good. And then also Latavius Murray in the back end. I mean, if Dalvin Cook does go down again or something, they have a viable backup option.
Right.
Latavius Murray did well last year.
Yes.
I mean, he helped take me to a fantasy championship last year, but I didn't win, but I got there to the game. But he helped me out as a flex player for sure. But from a wide receiver standpoint, they have
Great core.
Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Like people have compared like Stephon Diggs to maybe being like Antonio Brown, like eventually maybe a couple of years. Like they think he's that good. Like he has the talent to do that, and he's shown it in the past that he can be that good. Now whether he gets there, time will tell. We'll see. But like Adam Thielen, if I had to say like a 1 or a 2, I think Adam Thielen's number 1 right now. But Stephon Diggs is a very close second. I mean, that's like 2 great. That's kind of like the Cleveland thing with Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry. Like it's kind of like a 1A, 1B almost from a wide receiver standpoint. It's just going to be who's Kirk Cousins' favorite target is usually the number 1 wide receiver going to be. I mean, we don't really know. Adam Thielen's probably getting drafted a little bit ahead of Diggs right now, but I don't think Diggs is far behind whatsoever.
I think Thielen's a more down in, down out back. Like he just is going to get more of the short yardage, which helps you build up things slower. Maybe Diggs is the bigger play guy. But
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Diggs he'll pop off for a couple huge games.
Right.
But Thielen, like if you run like a PPR, like a wanted a consistent person, Thielen might
Good
be that
PPR
kind of
guy.
person.
Yeah.
So, from a tight end perspective, Kyle Rudolph. I mean, to be completely honest, I am super big on Kyle Rudolph this year. I love him to death. You've seen Kirk Cousins use a tight ends in the past with Jordan Reed, and
Yeah.
Jordan Reed was healthy. He's an absolute monster with Kirk Cousins. So we'll see if that transit. I mean, Jordan Reed is not the same kind of tight end as Kyle Rudolph is, though. Jordan Reed's more of like a wide receiver, stretch the field tight end.
Right.
Kyle Rudolph's more of like the 10, 15 yard dump because you need a first down kind of tight end. So, but he's going to get it done. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know if Kyle Rudolph's being drafted super high this year, but I think he's somebody to keep an eye out for. I think he absolutely has potential to be a top 5 tight end this year.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind. But let me one thing I want to say is I already talked about the defense, but let me put this together. I could have pretty much the entire Vikings team as my fantasy lineup. So I could have Kirk Cousins as my quarterback, Dalvin Cook as one of my running backs, Thielen and Diggs as both my wide receivers, Rudolph as my tight end, and the Minnesota Vikings as my defense, and I would take that every day.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I would have if I could have their entire team as my fantasy team, I'd do it.
I'm not
Because
disagree.
I would absolutely take it.
Jesus, that's living or dying now.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to
Well,
do
yeah,
that. That's not
but,
going to
like,
Who
happen.
you taking number 1?
But I'm saying, but I'm saying is that if I had to, like, there's no weakness on that any of those players that I said. I don't think there's any weakness in any of them. So like, if I'm willing to have all of them as like one of my starters on my team, that's I think they have to do it this year.
Yeah, you're right. I think Diggs is probably the person that is the most questionable on that list.
I agree. But I think Diggs also.
He's still good.
Diggs is downfield threat.
I think Diggs is the most
Right.
upside.
Yeah, he does.
So, but we shall see. I mean, people are saying the Vikings are one of the people that could be competing for, could be competing for a Super Bowl this year. I mean, they really could get it done. They went, and I think they did fill their one place that they weren't super strong in at quarterback,
Right.
Yeah.
and then we got one of the most viable options they could. Now, people have questioned Kirk Cousins whether he can do it or not, but we'll see what he does. Let us see where Kirk does.
See if he throws that
Yeah.
more of the you like that.
You like that?
You like that?
So, we shall see. So if I had to say a win total, I would say 11-5 is what they would go. You guys take.
I'm gonna go the over. I really like the Vikings. I think their defense is good. I think they got everything. I think it all depends on how Kirk Cousins fits into the mold, to how the Vikings do things, and just to see kind of how they develop with the receiver relationship. But they have all the weapons. I don't think there's any doubt they could be one of the best teams in football. Period.
I'm going to go over as well. Their defense is stout. There's really no holes in it. And their offense is pretty much top of the notch too, so there's really not a flaw. They might beat themselves, but I think 12-4 is not a bad option.
I'll go over.
Yeah, I'm picking the over.
All right, so that's our team breakdown. Those are a couple teams that we really liked. We are not done yet, folks, so hold on to your seats. All right, so one of the things we want to talk about is the fantasy strategy. When you're going through, day-to-day life in the fantasy world, it can be rough. I mean, you can have some ups, you can have some downs, some twists and turns, some lefts and rights. But what goes around comes around. But one of the things we want to talk about is, and one question I want to bring up, is how to know when to pick someone up off of the waiver wire. How do you qualify or want to know? Usually, you have a player that there's a pretty viable option that you need. You might need a replacement for a bye week. Somebody goes down. You need to pick somebody up. You have an extra bench spot. How do you know when to pick somebody up, or what do you look for when you're going through and trying to get those people off the waiver wire?
Well, I think what the really good fantasy people, when I listen to podcasts or whatever, it's about matchups. So, because the problem is you're deep. If you're deep on the waiver, you're really trying to find that guy. Someone you're not, they'll keep probably on your roster. It's about, because maybe 1 week they had 10 points and it's 2, and then it's 5, and then it's 7. There's no way to just okay, they're averaging this much because it's 2 up and down. I think it's all about matchups. So finding the team that, hey, this team gives up this much yards against this receiver, and finding those perfect matchups. I mean, you never know. I think sometimes it's just a crapshoot and hoping for the best, but I think the matchups is really what can distinguish kind of what route to go and how you can win some games with just some lucky pickups.
Yeah, I agree. I think, obviously, when there's an injury, everyone knows that, and I'm pretty sure, I know we all do. If we don't know the backup or the third string, we Google it right away.
Right.
We pretty much all have a waiver out for it, but I think if you're paying attention, you look long-term, let's say like a Lamar Miller situation. He's going to start, but we could see the backup potentially getting more touches later on, so that might be a bench player, a bench spot you might want to hold for a while just in case something like that happens. So.
Right.
I agree.
How do you think it changes up? We're doing our first dynasty fantasy football league this year. How do you think that changes things up?
A lot.
Changes everything.
So Dynasty is
Totally
like
different.
100% completely different, I think.
But
Yeah.
I mean, for
I agree.
your pickup for your, because I mean your bench is going to be a little bit bigger on a dynasty league. How do you think that's
Yeah.
going to change up your
Oh.
1 week waiver wire?
How I would do is it would make me less willing to drop somebody just because they got
Right.
hurt.
Mhm.
So like if I say I
Right.
had Darius Geis on my team, and like in a redraft league, I'm gonna drop him. If I would have already drafted him, I would have picked somebody else up now. But in a dynasty league, I'm gonna still hold on to him. I'm not gonna drop him and go pick up somebody else unless there's a way better viable option, which there's not gonna be.
I think it's
But-
young talent too. You kind of
Yeah.
gotta ride and die by the young talent because I mean you just never know who's will really break out, and then you would have got a steal instead you dropped them, somebody else did them, and then they're one's gonna go.
That's where I'm going to fail this year is because I do not know very much about college football. Like I am more NFL, but I don't know much about college, so I don't know a lot about the rookies, and that is where you guys are gonna have those deep picks with the rookies that are coming in that aren't gonna get their play time, but are gonna be stellar here in a couple of years, and I'm not gonna have that opportunity because I don't know.
Sounds like you need to pay attention on
Yeah.
Saturday.
Apparently,
No,
my whole weekend
I'll just,
devoted to
that's
college.
fine. That's fine. I just have an advantage every week. No, I think for a dynasty league, I've never done it before, but
Yeah.
I think it's about youth. If you want like older running backs, upper 20s, lower 30s, that's a lot of wear and tear on them.
Window's
You have
short.
to- Yeah. So yeah.
You're taking a lot of risk on them.
Yeah.
They can still be good this year, next year, a couple years.
I guess the way that I play the waiver wire is
Drop all your players, come play.
Try to switch kickers last minute, then we both lose both of our players.
I mean, I guess there's two things. The first thing is that I always, if a running back went down from an injury, I usually pick that player up. I just always do it. I think it worked. Like it's worked for me.
Like the backup, you're saying?
And yeah, and also I think like for a flex player, the person who ever gets lucky by picking, because there's always a few players on the waiver that people pick up and end up being top 10 players.
Yeah, always.
It happens every year, and for a flex caliber player, whoever has I bet the person who has the best flex player is the person who's going to have the best pickup off the waiver. I think that could be a possibility. And if someone like breaks, I don't know, I don't always jump on stuff, but if someone breaks out and just has like a really good game, or they're hot at that moment, I might just pick them up anyway. Like let's say like Marvin Jones one year, because I guess what Rose said in the first podcast is I know sometimes when to get rid of these players. Well, you get them when they're super hot, and if you know your player the best. So when you have a gut feeling that you think he's just going to go, that's when you get rid of him and you trade him. So I think like that is also like a strategy that I've used.
Yeah.
And it's worked against sometimes. I guess some of the better players in the league, it doesn't work. Sometimes it does.
High, low, so high.
Just like
Undrafted players.
trading Cody, Christian McCaffrey, and Des Bryant for
Shady.
last year.
I'm still upset about that.
McCaffrey will be good this year.
Kid McCaffrey will be. I think he'll be.
He
a top
will
10
be
quarterback.
better. He will be better.
Because
He's a
Stewart's
starter.
gone.
Stewart's gone.
Stewart's gone. They don't have anybody as a second option really.
They
I
do
think
have
it's
C.J.
worth-
Anderson that signed.
Oh yes, I forgot that is, but also old. He's more of a get me a couple yards back. I think McCaffrey will be the every down back. So
Do any of you guys ever on the waiver just look and pick up players just for the sheer fact of that you necessarily don't need them, but you just want to pick them up so somebody else doesn't have them, or to make that person mad?
Absolutely.
You ever
Defense
done
is
that?
the best
Absolutely.
offense.
We've done that.
I've told fuck you guys.
We've done that to him a lot.
Yeah.
I think we picked up Ben Roethlisberger one year.
No, like you picked up, like I needed a quarterback because I had Carson Wentz and we were going into the playoffs.
That was you.
Then
And I'm-
doesn't it
I
piss you off when someone that's completely
Explain the story.
no? I mean this goes along the same thing. What was you gonna say?
I was going to explain my story that I was telling, but so I went last year for the playoffs. I had Carson Wentz the whole year, and then he went down at for the next week 13, So then for 14, I had to pick up a quarterback. Well, these motherfuckers who weren't in the playoffs or like were very low seeds went and picked up a bunch of quarterbacks, so I couldn't pick up any of them. Like collusion against me. So then
I think you ended up getting who you wanted.
I got Blake Bortles because I don't think you guys thought I was going to pick him up.
Isn't that who I dropped? Is
Yes,
that
that's who you dropped.
Oh yeah,
Blake
no
Bortles.
bullshit story.
He actually did really well for me, so I can't really complain. But it was fucking bullshit because these guys had like 3 quarterbacks on their team. We only played 1 quarterback league.
Yeah,
Anyway, but
that's basically what I was gonna say.
all right. So speaking of quarterbacks, though, what if we had to go through a quarterback draft strategy? Sometimes quarterbacks, there are different philosophies of how you draft them. So some people will say to take a quarterback who you know is going to do good, who's a rock solid person, like a Rodgers, a Wilson, a Brady. Somebody who's always going to get points, you know what you're going to get out of them, but you're going to have to pay up and you're going to have to pay the price for them early on in your draft. Now, there's always high upside people, like way late in the draft, like a Tyrod Taylor, like a Garoppolo, like I don't know who else. But I mean, these people that are down there and have much, much more upside, do you pay up for them? But you also have the risk of that is that they could do nothing. Like Andy Dalton was one of those people that was really low, and he did terrible the first couple weeks. Wasn't on like anybody's fantasy teams at all.
He wasn't on your start of the season.
He was
He
on
got
line to start the
negative-
season. He got
oh.
negative 3 points. So I remember this. So yeah. So what would you say? What would you say is your quarterback draft strategy? Like, what do you qualify? When do you want to take a quarterback? How do you know when to take a quarterback? Is it just who it is? Is it just if like the value's there? Like what do you guys look for?
I'm thinking this year.
Aaron,
I know for a fact that none of us in this room right now will be picking up Rodgers because Aaron Figley, another one of our team players, is going to pick up Aaron Rodgers in the first or second round. I could almost bet that.
I think third. I think personally,
I would pick him up in the third round. So if I
I'm
have
never
a pick
high.
before.
I'm never high on drafting quarterback in the top. I don't even know 6,
It's
7.
the field to draft.
It's who's available to me. I mean,
Usually Tom Brady, Aaron, they go quick, and I always feel like I'm giving up. Maybe I can get a running back that's gonna be really good during the year, or receiver. So I just play it by draft. I never have a quarterback in mind that I'm going to get in the second round no matter what. So
you only got like a handful of guys who were the quarterbacks you want, and if those guys, there's not many of them left, then you got a bunch of guys that are, I think, in the same segment, so you can just do whoever you want in that segment at that point and ride or die with them. But I think if you have the opportunity to get a Rodgers and it's not the first or second pick, it's maybe a third pick, pop in early on somebody like that you know is going to maybe consistently get points every week. Might not be a terrible strategy. I haven't done it in the past, but this year might be something
There's a
I've
lot
never
of
done.
quarterbacks.
There is a lot of good quarterbacks.
Right, that's the thing.
And then 10-person league out of 32 quarterbacks in the league. I mean, not everybody's going to have 2 quarterbacks. Some
Right.
people will, but
Even on some of the weaker teams that we've seen, they finally have some better quarterbacks this year, I feel like.
Right. Well, I think there's that's a great point. I think there's more quarterbacks to pick up. I mean, the Browns usually don't have anybody to pick up, so now you can pick up Tyrod. Who knows? Baker Mayfield could start later and just be a stud. Who knows? But
it's very true.
Old Baker.
Very, very true. Okay.
What?
Okay.
I was just gonna bring up like another point we could maybe possibly talk about with quarterbacks. Is that
Yes, Tanner, I accept your question, please.
Raise your hand.
Who do you guys think out of the rookie quarterbacks do you think is going to be the best breakout?
Oh, that's a good question.
Quarterback, not rookies in general, but quarterback.
Ooh.
I think it's interesting.
One that's going to break out just in general. Just quarterback.
Well, I know who's going to. I think he's going to. I think Sam Darnold's going to
Retweet.
He's going to.
You
I think
guys
he's going.
think Sam Darnold?
I think he's going to be the starting quarterback. Some of these other guys aren't even going to be the starting.
Josh
quarterbacks.
Allen. Josh Allen.
I don't think he'll be very good.
Sam Darnold's got to convince.
He's going to start. I
You
think
think
he's
he's
going
gonna
to
convince
start
you?
though now.
I think he was the best quarterback in the draft.
Who?
Sam Darnold.
Jeez.
Dude, he throws over. I watched Notre Dame destroy his ass. He doesn't. He's a wussy. I don't like him, but I think Josh Allen.
Sam
Ohio
Darnold
State
jumped
made
in.
him look dumb.
Sam Darnold jumping right in, right away.
Yeah,
He's
but
gonna
he
have
throws
experience.
the ball away, and he's not. I
No.
don't think he has. I think he has all the athletic ability. I don't think he has the smarts. I don't think he sees the field. It's a hot take, but that's my opinion.
Josh
Someone's gotta throw out hot
Rosen
takes.
Rosen will also start for Arizona, correct?
No, because Sam Bradford will probably start
Okay.
this season.
I don't like Bradford.
And Lamar.
He could take
Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to be nice.
Actually-
I think he's going to be nice.
He's not. I don't think he's going to start right away. But if
I
they're
like
going to start
Lamar
losing,
Jackson.
they're going to call for him. They're going to be like, "Hey, put Jackson."
I do too.
I just love his mobility and everything, so I think he's
Little.
smart. I think he's
With
smart.
McCarron going down, with the hairline fracture being out a couple weeks, Josh Allen's probably going to start. If he can prove himself for a couple weeks, I don't think they'll put McCarron back in, and he's going to have a starting role.
I don't think McCarron's that good. He didn't prove on the Bengals.
No, right,
He
he
got
didn't.
the opportunity. He got
No.
the best Bengals team we've seen in a couple years, and to take them and win a playoff game against the Steelers, and he just couldn't.
Josh Allen, I think he just has the
Yeah.
skill set to be a great quarterback. I think he just reminds me of somebody who can have developed into that. Tom Brady, or whatever you want to call it. I think he just has that, so it'll be interesting.
Now, if I had to say which team's going to be the worst, because it ain't going to be the Browns. It's not. There's no way. There's no way they can be the worst. I'm going to go the Bills. I think the Bills are going to be
Really?
terrible.
The Miami Dolphins.
That's a good pick.
Ooh, I like the Dolphins pick. I do.
The Giants are up there.
What
No. Not with
Tannehill?
the offense they have.
Is Tannehill the starter?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Dolphins didn't do anything.
They do have Kenyon Drake, I think.
I just don't think they're going.
They just can't if they can't open up the passing game.
They lost Landry.
Who's the biggest improvement then? The Browns.
Browns.
All right, that's what I figured everybody would say it, but
You went out and reached for that question.
I think the 49ers. I mean, I know they had a good end of the season, but I really do think 49ers could be. They could stir things up. I think
in a
Garoppolo.
few years they're gonna be real nice.
I think he's good. I think he has a high
Because
ceiling.
Kyle Shanahan's there now. And when he was with Atlanta,
That's when they went to the Super Bowl.
yes,
Right.
Is that
Studley.
he was the offense coordinator?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
I agree. All right. Anybody else got anything else?
I want to clear the air. I was not here to defend myself on podcast, and I was pointing out that I don't pay attention to my fantasy team. So I would like to clear the air. You guys can be the judge. We can put it on the Twitter poll. But I think from the knowledge that I just spoke here at this table, that I do pay attention and not just forget about my team. I've had a couple bad years where my team has dealt with a lot of injuries, a lot of lack of performances, like drafting DeMarco Murray.
Excuses.
You know, Cody, I don't trade away my best player. So, anyways, I just wanted to clarify the air. I know what I'm talking about to a degree, and I'm looking for a good year this year. I'm feeling a redemption year.
Well, Dylan's whole team is going to be Notre Dame.
Oh, well, I dress smarter than that.
Yeah.
All right. And on that note, that'll be it for this week's podcast of the Beer League Fantasy Football. You can come and follow us. We'll put our own little plug here on Twitter at Beer League FB.
Let's go follow us, baby.
Go ahead and follow us. We'll also be posting this video on YouTube, so you can go ahead and follow us there. Give us a like on there, and we'll see you next time. Good night, guys.
Beer League!
Beer League!
Woo!